This video was made possible with the help of Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience with a Game Topper.
Well, hello chaps and chapettes, and welcome to a Board Games Everybody Should video, where I'm going to explain how to play and talk about my first impressions of the newest game from Christophe Boulanger, who is the designer of Dungeon Twister, Living Planet, Archipelago, and Fruit Salad. Fruit Salad? Anyone? Fruit Salad? You? No? You? Ah, okay. Well, Fruit Salad coming up, especially for you. This new game is called Rise and Fall. This is a game that I've been waiting for a long time to play, because I have played it a long time ago, before like the world stopped turning or something like that. But this is a civilization building game which is easy to teach and learn but difficult to master. And in this game you're going to be building up a population to get points, you're going to be building up economy to get points, and you're going to be building up area control to get points. But there's no combat, but there are things which you can hinder the other players with. So as I said, in this video, I'm going to explain to you how to play this game, which is coming to Kickstarter very soon, so look out for that. And I'm going to give you some of my first impressions about playing this game.
Let me start by saying that what you're seeing here is not the final version, but a near final version of the actual game that you will get in the Kickstarter. So be aware that some of it may change or be tweaked a little bit. The first thing the players are going to do is they're going to create the world to play in. Depending on the number of players will determine how many tiles are used in the game. Here are the 3-player starting tiles of the sea. Then players would take it in turn to add an additional sea tile adjacent, touching 2 other tiles and not creating any holes. Once this is done, the plain tiles are placed on top of the sea tiles. Then the forest tiles on top of the plain tiles, the mountain tiles on top of the forest tiles, and finally the ice caps on top of the mountain tiles. So the players have generated different regions of different values. This sea region is 3, this mountain region is of 3, this forest area is of 1, and this plains area is of 9. Whoever has the most playing pieces in each region will have dominance in that region and will score points for those regions. You'll place next to this the trophy board, which is one way of scoring points, the wood and stone resource tokens, and again, depending on the number of players, you'll put out X amount of money. Players will then choose their colours, collect the 6 civilization cards of their colour, the 8 nomads, 8 cities, 5 ships, 3 mountaineers, 3 temples, and 6 merchants of their colour as well. Once again, in turn order, each player will place out one of their nomads, one of their cities, and one of their ships. Nomads can only be placed on the plains, the mountain, and the forest. Cities can be placed on the plains and the forest. And ships, obviously, can only be placed in the sea. One important rule is that only one playing piece may occupy one space. The one exception for this rule is a merchant can move into a space where there is a city. And now all you have to do is, with your 6 civilization cards, is just keep hold of the ship, the city, and the nomad. The other 3 cards will be your reserve. Now your reserve is for any playing piece which is not on the board. As soon as you add a new playing piece onto the board which is not already on there, so say a temple for example, you then take the temple card into your hand. And then again, if any playing piece is removed, so if you remove all of your ships
for example, because they all become pioneers and nomads and explore the world, that card, the ship card, will go into your reserve. At the end of the game, any cards in the reserve are not scored, and again, any cards in the decline are not scored. Now, it's with these cards that you're going to be playing, but before I teach you how to play this very simple game, you need to pick your first player. So a round is broken down into 5 little phases. The first phase is players will simultaneously choose one card from their hand and place it face down. If you have a player which is dawdling and everybody's waiting for them, you can do a countdown and make them play a card quickly or have a card chosen at random. After this is done, players will reveal their card and perform the action of that civilization. So for example, I've just played the city card, and what I'll do is I'll be able to perform actions from my city. For each city I have on the board, I can perform the same action or a different action. This is done in turn order from the first player around the table. Once this is done, normally you might jump back to the first phase, which is drawing a card, placing it face down. But you may find that a player has placed out the last of a playing piece onto the board. So I may have placed my last boat. So I have no boats in my reserve. They're all on the board, which means that I can claim the boat trophy. I then take it from the trophy board, and this signals a decline. In a decline, players are obliged to remove a card from play from either their hand or their discard pile. This is placed onto the trophy board and cannot be used for the rest of the game unless it is bought back. The value to buy a card back is marked on the trophy board, and as you can see, the more trophies that are collected, the more expensive it is to buy a card back. You need to be careful here because any cards in the decline cannot score you points at the end of the game. And also, if you find that you've whittled yourself down into one card and then someone forces a decline and you have to play that one card onto the decline board, you are eliminated. Your civilization is removed from the board. But after the decline phase is done, as I said, players can buy back their decline cards. After that, you will check to see if any player has an empty hand and they have to draw back from their discard pile. If this happens, the first player token is passed to the next player. And then the round continues by choosing a card, revealing it, performing the actions, checking for a decline, checking to see if someone's refreshed their hand by drawing all their cards, and on and on. Simple as that. But you know, it's not. The devil is in the detail. The detail is the actions on these cards. Let me explain what they are.
Here are the 4 actions that the nomad can perform. They can move to an adjacent space, as long as it's not the sea or an ice cap. They also cannot traverse a cliff. A cliff is where 2 tile height difference occurs, which normally happens between a plain and a mountain. A nomad can also produce a resource. If they're in the forest, they will produce a wood. If they're on the mountain, they produce a stone. Nomads can also settle down. They can build a city on a forest or plain area by spending 1 wood and 1 stone. You remove their nomad token and replace it with a city. They can also construct a temple. This can be built on a plain or a mountain, never hidden in a forest, and this costs 2 stone. Again, remove the nomad and replace it with a temple. And if they want to, they can also change their job and become a sailor. If a nomad is adjacent the sea on a plain space, they can spend 1 wood and immediately place a boat adjacent. 3 things a city can do. Number 1, you can grow your population. Simply place a nomad adjacent your city, as long as it's not over a cliff or in a water tile or an ice cap tile. You can train your pioneer to be a merchant or a mountaineer. Just make sure that your nomad is next to the city, not over a cliff, and then spend either 2 money to transform it into a merchant or 1 money to transform it into a mountaineer. And finally, you can collect taxes in your city. Depending on the space that your city is on, you can collect 1 money, say if it was on a mountain, 2 money if it was on a plain, or 3 money if it's in a forest. Ships. These are the nomads of the sea, but they can move a little differently. A ship can move to any space in the same region of sea, and it can pass by all opponents and your own boats which are on the sea already. Your jolly sailors, if they are docked near to a plain, they can actually build a temple by spending 2 stone, or build a city by spending 1 stone. Again, your sailors may want to change their job. If they are next to a forest or a plain, they can transform into a nomad. And if your ship is adjacent a city, whether it be an opponent's or your own, you can transform them into a merchant by spending 2 money. And finally, your ship could be a merchant ship, and it will collect money from selling goods to every city which is on the edge of the sea area that they are in. This being 3 pieces of money. The mountaineer. They can move 1 to 3 spaces, as long as those spaces do not include the sea. They can also jump up and down cliffs, as well as walk through spaces containing your own people. Just like a nomad, these guys can collect resources for you. In the forest, 1 wood. If you're on the mountain or on an ice cap, they collect a stone. And finally, the mountaineer can actually build a city, and not just anywhere. They can build them on mountains and forests by spending 2 wood. The merchant can move up to 4 spaces, and they can traverse spaces which contain you or your opponent's playing pieces. They cannot walk through water or go through the ice caps, but they can end their turn in a city, whether it be yours or an opponent's. They can sell their wares to a city, whether it be yours or an opponent's. If it's your city, you get 3 money. If it's an opponent's city, you get 5 money. Merchants can also sell your resources you own. You can sell your stone or your wood for 5 money per piece. Or you can buy stone or wood for 5 money again. A merchant can change their job into being a sailor by being on a plane next to the sea and spending 1 wood. Finally, let's talk about the temples. Temples can convert the playing pieces of your opponents into your own. By spending X amount of money, you can convert a merchant for a merchant, or a sailor for a sailor, a nomad for a nomad, or a mountaineer for a mountaineer. And finally, the temple can collect 2 coins of charitable donations for each of your playing pieces adjacent.
The game will normally end when a player claims the 4th trophy from the trophy board. You could extend the game and say either the 5th or the 6th, but that is totally up to you. You will then have 1 chance to buy back any cards from the decline, because as I said earlier, any cards in the decline will not score you for your civilization. And then you'll do the final scoring. The final scoring consists of 4 things: your economy, your trophy tokens, the territory you control, and the development of your civilization. Trophies are very simple. You just count up how many trophy tokens you have. The economy is very simple. You basically look at the money you have, and then you divide it by 2 and you score that in points. Then there are your territories. Each region on the board has its own point value. For example, the plains are 1 point per space, the sea is 2 points per space, the forest is 3 points per space, and the mountain and snow peaks, which count as 1, are 4 points per space. You will look at each region and then see who has dominance. For example, in this mountain region here, there's only the red player, which means they have dominance and will score 4 points per space on the mountain, giving a total of 12. Again, blue has majority in the plains region here, the yellow has majority here in the mountains, red here in the mountain and the snow peak, and here is equality. There is 1 each of the red and yellow, which means nobody scores for this sea region. And finally, the development of your civilization. You'll look at all the civilization cards you have in your hand and in your discard pile, not your reserve and not in the decline, and you will count out how many of the playing pieces of that card are on the board, and you'll correspond it to the points at the bottom of that card. And there you have it. The player with the most points after you total those 4 things up is the winner of the game. So, Rise and Fall is coming to Kickstarter on the 6th of September 2022. During the course of the campaign, you'll be able to test it yourself, because there is actually an online version which is going to be available to unlock with the Kickstarter. And so you can play the game itself, and maybe these rules hopefully will help you play the game a bit quicker than reading them all. But then again, reading them might be quicker because I waffle, don't I think. As I said, Kickstarter link is in the notes below. What are my impressions of this game? Well, I do like this game, but that's just my opinion. I've played it 3 times with 3 different player counts. I've played a 2-player, 3-player and a 4-player. The 2-player is just a back and forth. It's more interesting with more players. The 3-player game and the 4-player game was a lot more interesting because there's someone else to play against. And again, this countdown mechanic when you're choosing a card is kind of a bit obsolete with the 2-player game, unless you just want to add a few more seconds onto that, because one player might be thinking ahead and already play a card as soon as the round starts, and then the other player's got 3 seconds to decide, oh, I've just picked up my cards, I don't know what I'm going to do. So the thing I like is this kind of like mini deck building aspect, where you have some cards in your hand and you're playing one at a time, and once they're gone you draw back up, kind of Concordia stylish, but you really have to calculate really well what you're going to do, which card to play first, before that will help the next card that you play to kind of grow your population. And that's what this game is. It's about exploding it like a virus across the board. So there are some strategies of like, maybe I should just waffle down to 2 cards and just circle through a small deck of cards instead of a big deck of cards, especially at the beginning of the game, and that's always plays into a nice strategy. And then you have to be careful because there is the decline, and if the decline catches you off course, you could be eliminated from the game, which could be a kind of a nail in the coffin in a way for a player. So that kind of sour you experience if you don't like that kind of vicious player elimination thing. The other slightly vicious thing in the game is the temples, and there's nothing worse than someone transforming your worker into their worker. So those kind of things, like, stay well clear of. Again, sometimes that's not always possible in the game, but then again, that's where some of the strategy comes from, your hand management and card counting the other players. They've just played a temple. They're not going to play a temple for another couple of rounds because they've still got a couple of cards in their hand, and then they'll draw their hand back up to that size, and then they'll use it again. So I need to move. The cards are great because they have all the rules written on them, basically in image form. And so it makes the game simple. It makes the game very simple to teach. You can just get the card and go, okay, this means this means that, and this means that, much like what you've seen in this video. And then there's the board. Part of the fun of the game is building this world and trying to create like a large region for you to like, oh, I'm going to conquer that one and get a lot of points. But at the same time, cut off other players which are doing the same things. And again, the game kind of automatically, through the mechanisms of building the world, will create that anyway. So it's fun to build this 3D terrain, and then, much like HeroScape kind of way, but it's quicker than HeroScape. And then plan out where you're going to start, being aware of the cliffs, being aware of certain big regions that you want to collect big points with. Talking about the terrain, it looks beautiful. Nothing's too obscuring. The tiles are thick, but not thick enough to create like a wall that something can be hidden behind, so you won't see from your position of the table. You don't necessarily have to stand up to look down on the board to go, okay. And again, there is enough space to play. When you set up and then you place your few pieces down on the board, it looks like, well, this is a big world, this is going to take forever. But after a while, pretty quickly, you'll colonize, and this board will feel tight, and due to the fact that you have this mechanic of you can't put a playing piece in a space with another playing piece. And just quickly, the components, although it's kind of like prototype finished version, somewhere in between, they look gorgeous. It looks gorgeous on your table. I love these shiny coins. It's a shame that not a lot of games do shiny coins, but the 3D-ness looks nice. You can see clearly where a cliff is, where a pathway is. The playing pieces are nice as well. They're a nice size to hold and fondle and tweak with at the table. Although that some players may have a bit of difficulty adjusting to which one's a pioneer and which one's a merchant and make a few gaffes that way, but that will clear up as the game goes on. But components wise, this game looks gorgeous. It feels like I'm building an ant farm and I'm programming them with my cards, and I enjoy that. It kind of like gives me that sensation of playing the old Blue Byte video game called The Settlers, where you just plonk a man there and they build a road and then they collect resources and then that allows you to build something else. And I kind of like wish there were some more resources in it instead of the brick and the wood, the stone in the wood. But that's enough to get people going. This is a solid game as it is. Maybe with the Kickstarter there'd be an introduction of a few different characters. Hint, hint, Christoph. Different resources. Hint, hint, Christoph. But anyway, I don't know. I know that there are some player powers which can be distributed at the beginning of the game, which gives the players these really powerful powers, much kind of like Marco Polo. These rule-breaking things. There's one which will allow you to attack and eliminate other players' pieces. There's one which will allow you to convert other players' pieces further away from the temple. This is a solid strategic game, kind of chess-like, where if you make a few mistakes, it might put you a few steps back. If you make a lot of mistakes, you're going to struggle to catch up. So I recommend this game for the experts and the intermediate players. Maybe players which are more around your kind of level of playing as well, to stop this kind of like difference of scores at the end of the game. Because there's no randomness, there's no kind of catch-up mechanic, you really have to be focused into the game to appreciate it and to do well and have that good competition between all the players. I like the fact that it has this kind of AP removing aspect when you're choosing your card, because there's nothing worse than waiting for a simultaneously playing part of a game and one player is deliberately taking their time doing 3,000 calculations of how they're going to optimize what they're going to do. This countdown from drawing a card, very simple. Although it doesn't kind of work with the 2-player version of the game because it just doesn't feel right. But 3-player, 4-player, you need that kind of countdown. It adds a bit of fun as well. So there you go. There you have it. If you like a deep strategic game, this is a board game that everybody should go for, basically, because it is chess but in a Settlers of Catan kind of way, without the random dice rolling and waiting for wheat to grow. In fact, this is a game that I'd rather play than Settlers of Catan, although Settlers of Catan is a good introductory game to get gamers into gaming, but this is a solid game for gamers. So that's Rise and Fall. As I said, the Kickstarter link is in the notes below. You can also test this game out for yourself, as I said, online during the course of the Kickstarter to see if this is something that you like. And hopefully my opinion has either pointed you in the direction whether this is a game for you or not. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to share it with someone that might be interested in this game, share it. Subscribe if you wish, but I can't promise you that I'm going to produce many videos during the course of the year. So there you go. There you have it. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, please play nicely with each other.
Just sitting at the table next to Felicia would be quite nice. Wouldn't it be good? I got some board games.